You're listening to Parasearch Radio, news, views and reviews from the world of the paranormal from across the UK and beyond. Find us on Facebook, Twitter and the World Wide Web. Parasearch UK Radio. Parasearch Radio, broadcasting to the UK and beyond.
The views and opinions expressed by presenters and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Parasearch Radio or its affiliates and sponsors. Listener discretion is advised. You're listening to The Spectral Zone with host Caz Rooney.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Spectral Zone, Parasearch Radio's new Thursday night show. I'm being your host for the show. I'm Caz Rooney, and tonight we're going to be discussing Area 51. And I'm being joined tonight by Alan Crabtree. Alan, are you there?
Hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Thank you for joining us tonight.
My pleasure.
Now, Area 51. What a huge subject that is.
I mean, it is such a broad subject, but you can put it into a very short biopsy if you need to, and it's 100 miles. It's located 100 miles south of Las Vegas, and until relatively recently, it was unknown. They've joked about it being the worst kept secret in government security ever. But in 1952, construction was started, and it's on the Nellis Air Force Range where they first tested the atomic bomb.
Wow.
Now, it's a huge expanse in Nevada. It's very mountainous. There's lots of dry lake beds, for example. But
that's what you picture with that area, isn't it? Really?
Oh yeah. I mean, desert-wise, it's it's huge. It's very remote in some places. Very hard to get to. If you needed to get to that certain point, you would seriously need to be a survival expert in a way.
Yeah.
So it wasn't common knowledge at all. Obviously, there was lots of workers going out there.
Yeah.
It was designed for the U-2 spy plane, which was the first spy plane which could essentially go so high that it would avoid any particular SAM sites or any missile technology that could break it, shoot it down. But famously, the Russians shot down a U-2 spy plane in the 60s and captured the pilot. So it wasn't high enough. So after that came the SR-71, which is commonly known as the Blackbird.
I've heard of that.
Yeah, which people would have seen. It's a very famous plane. It's still one of the fastest planes, ever designed. Funnily enough, the titanium it was made of was bought from Russia during the Cold War period, which is kind of interesting that that they got the material from there. And obviously, it still holds records for altitude and speed right now. But then subsequently, after that, the F-117A stealth fighter, which everybody would be familiar with. It's the V-shaped black fighter in America. And more controversially, the Aurora project, which obviously doesn't have many eyewitnesses or many people that actually give any description about it whatsoever.
Yeah.
So building up to that, in 1988, there was. This is all allegedly, obviously. Allegedly, you've got to be very careful.
It's allegedly.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose you've got to be very careful where you take information from.
Yeah.
But I was most interested in what this person had to say about the spacecraft and the alleged propulsion system, and certainly that piqued my interest. So 12 years ago, I was scrolling through Facebook, and I enjoy astronomy, mathematics, physics, engineering, and I saw an ion propulsion drive proposed, etc. And then there was a documentary about this alien spacecraft.
Yeah.
So I watched it, and it was Bob Lazar.
Yeah.
Now, Bob Lazar
basically put it on the map, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, nobody. I mean, maybe there was a handful of people that knew around the area. Obviously, there's something going on over there. There's lots of planes coming in and out, but the highway next to it was renamed the Extraterrestrial Highway after his story came out.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because his story is one on its own, but it also fits in with the ability for everybody around the area to go. There's a secret base, hidden from you.
Yeah, this is the thing I find interesting because I mean, all these years later, they're still denying there's anything there.
Well, actually, in 2014, they did announce that Area 51 exists.
Well, I mean, yeah, but they haven't told us what exactly, have they?
Oh no, they don't. They just acknowledged the existence. Obama actually brought it into common practice, common law, and he announced that it exists. But by then, obviously, anything secretive would have been moved.
Yeah, I would imagine so. I mean, they're not going to leave it there because too many people would descend on the place, wouldn't they?
Yeah, well, they are doing to the day, and I think that's another story for another time.
Yeah, true.
So, Bob Lazar, he graduated at MIT, and obviously all this is speculative because people have said that, he never went there, or whatever.
Yeah.
But he did, from Caltech with physics, MIT with physics and electronic engineering. He went to work at the Mason Physics Laboratory at Los Alamos, which obviously is where they built the atomic bomb, and has been a very dedicated research facility. It is pretty much like a science haven for anyone across the world. Yeah. He went to work there. He worked on the first, or one of the first, mile-long linear particle accelerators. And he worked there for 2.5 years. And he came out of there to help set his wife up with a 24-hour photo laboratory because she was a real estater, and she needed photos for, like really quick and turn it around. After a few years, he got a real hankering to go back to, the science, and he made a very good connection with Edward Teller. He's the modern day father of the hydrogen bomb. Yeah. And he met him at Los Alamos, obviously the laboratories. But he met him, and the ideal coincidence was that Bob was on the front page of the Los Alamos paper, the Monitor, and that's all recorded. The paper's there. Yes. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah. It's factual. You can prove that. That can be proven.
Yeah, 100% factual. Yeah. He put a 2,000 horsepower engine, a scramjet, engine, basically a jet engine, into the back of a Honda Civic, and did 200 miles an hour across the desert in it at 212. He said, But the engine he built, it had no moving parts, and it's very modern in terms of like a scramjet, for example. It works on air going in and then air being pushed out at a fast rate, but you've got to be moving already for it to be able to work. Yeah. So he was talking to Dr. Teller outside of the theatre where he was going to give a lecture, and the conversation went well. So he departed from Los Alamos to his own thing, and then he sent out some resumes. One of them was to Livermore National Laboratories, where Dr. Teller was a consultant. Yeah. Shortly after, he got an interview at EG&G, which was a major defence contractor in the States. And he was asked to come in for an interview. The interview was a lower type interview in terms of like job that he wanted to take. It didn't sound particularly interesting, and they thought he thought that they blew him off in a way, saying this position's too, it's not good. It's not really good enough for you. 3 or 4 days later, he got another phone call saying we've got a very interesting advanced propulsion system that we'd like you to work on. Yeah. And would you come in for another interview? Which he said was extremely rigorous. Yeah, rigorous. And he said it wasn't only questions about propulsion physics, high energy systems, but was he one to throw tools around the lab? Did he have fits to outbursts, or if he got frustrated or anything like that? So that sort of piqued his interest straight away, and he thought that he did well, and he got the job.
Well, I mean, the thing is, with Bob Lazar, I mean, obviously he's a very knowledgeable man.
Indeed.
So what I find interesting is why there are people who doubt his accounts.
Now, obviously, he has some major flaws in his background. Yeah. And they actually relate to criminal charges. Okay. One of them was he set up a computer system for a legal brothel in Las Vegas. So, the CCTV and obviously all the cameras to that. And obviously in Las Vegas, they are legalized.
Well, he wasn't breaking the law then, was he?
No, but obviously that was pinned on him.
Okay.
But one of the major things, which is really interesting, that when people ask him, but why did they choose you? Yeah. And they did say, and his thought was, his instinct was, and obviously it's not proven, but they could discredit him the easiest. He would be the easiest person to discredit. It's not like rolling Stephen Hawking into the lab, because, I mean, there's no way you're going to discredit, you're not going to discredit him, but, you rolled him into the lab. Yeah. Yes, he may have had some past repercussions that could affect his background, but immediately that is jumped on. Now, I'm not saying that I believe him one way or the other. Yeah. But credibility, there is a few things that stand out for me, and they're scientific in nature, as well as personal in nature. One, he's never changed his story over the last 30 years.
I've got to agree with that. He hasn't, has he?
He's only ever given a very select amount of interviews. I mean, we're talking, a handful. 30 years. He is very adverse to speaking to people. I did actually email him. I got a red receipt. That was about it. But, I think that is one of the things that gives me a little bit of hope that actually what he's saying is true.
Well, what's interesting, I actually found a quote that he'd given in an interview probably not that many years ago, but he's actually been asked, because there are people who have said that he was doing it to cash in, who he's put this story on the map and it's all his way of cashing in. There are people who believe him. But Bob Lazar actually says, given the same information, I'm not sure I believe the story either.
Well,
there's a lot I can't prove. It's what I observed and it's what happened to me.
I mean, he also does say that given a chance, he would never have ever whistleblowed or, however you want to call it. Although, at the time, and obviously the story goes on to say, his life was threatened on multiple occasions. So,
well, I mean, it's followed him his whole life, isn't it? He's always going to be known as the man who put the UFO guy on the map.
Mm.
This is a thing. So,
I mean, I think it's and that is another piece of credibility. It's the guy. The guy doesn't want to be spoken to about it. The guy wishes it never happened to him. He tells what sounds like a very, very convincing argument, but could you think that he might be a government disinformative person? Could he be one of those people? But I don't think so, because I think he'd be more like a Stanton Friedman, where he's on the stand all the time, and he's doing the lectures, and he's doing all the UFO conferences and stuff, and he's constantly on the stadium, whereas this guy personally does not want anything to do with anything like that.
I found another quote from this interview.
Yeah.
And it sounds quite harsh, but I can kind of understand why he said that. He did turn around and say, I really had to cut that loose. I don't answer UFO emails anymore. So if anyone is thinking of emailing me, I don't care if you were abducted. I'm sorry to hear about it, nor do I believe most of the UFO stories. So if he's saying it's real, and then he's turned around and saying he doesn't believe most of the stories.
I mean, I because he did an interview recently, and it was 2015 with George Knapp, which was the original TV presenter from the Los Angeles local news station, and the thing he did say is that if you want to email me, you can email me here, but it's very unlikely I'll answer you. Yeah. And I actually was very interested to know a bit more about the propulsion system in certain definitions, and I suppose I was lucky in a way that he actually even read it because I saw the red receipt. I didn't expect a response, but he's made a big impact in my life, because 12 years ago I heard a story about Bob Lazar, Area 51. 12 years later, I've heard so many more fascinating stories, but I guess I'd like to speak to a bit more about obviously about the craft, the propulsion system, and where he went. Is that okay?
Mm-hmm. Of course it is.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously there's a huge detailed backstory here, but essentially he got employed, security clearance. He had top secret Q clearance from Los Alamos already, but he did need apparently majestic clearance, and it had magic on his badge and stuff like that. But I don't know how much of that to believe. He flew to Groom Lake, which is a dry desert bed, lake bed, which is where Area 51, the two 10,000 runways are installed. But when he got there, the first time he went through a very rigorous security protocol screening. And he had to sign 2 agreements, which I think are very important. A 10-10, $10,000 and 10 years in prison for any information disclosed. You sign away all your rights to any legal representation. And the other one, which is also very interesting, was a 24-hour surveillance, phone tapping, monitoring all the time. So, he did say Ronald Reagan had signed the bottom of one of these, but that is conjecture. I'm not sure. Obviously he went through that and signed it, and there's a bit more of a backstory there, but we'll carry on. But he was never permitted to go anywhere on Area 51 apart from the cafeteria if the bus was late. So he was shuttled to an area called S4, which is essentially a secret installation off Groom Lake, which is off the dry bed Papoose Lake facility, which is basically another dry lake bed. And he said that the facility was built into the mountain, and there was hangars. There was 9 hangars built into the mountain wall with camouflage, etc., like that. So the first time he went there, he got there, and he was escorted in, and obviously there was lots of, security protocols to go through. But the first day, he was sat in a briefing room and given 121, 122 documents. He said very short synopses on the project, different areas, what was going on. And to this time, he thought, right, we're working on here, an advanced propulsion system. He didn't know at that time it was a UFO or alien technology. And he read through these documents, and he was interrupted every half an hour to make sure that he was, reading them all. And he still thought that this was a psychological examination to say, they're giving me all this crazy information here, and how am I going to cope with this when they take me out? So he read it. I suppose the buzz feeds from that are the craft came from the Zeta Reticuli system, which is a binary star system. Which most of our stars in our galaxy are binary or triple star systems.
Okay.
We're one of the few ones with just a solitary star. The aliens from there had been interacting with the human species for over 10,000 years. There was X amount of genetic experiments, but he, obviously because the information was so short, he didn't know whether or not it was true. And he went through them all, and essentially he said he got caught up on all the different side projects that were going on. So second time he came in. Can you? Sorry, I'm just going to have to pause you for 1 second.
Yeah. And he'll be back in a second. Hello.
Yeah, could you just give me a pause for a sec? Sorry.
Yeah. We'll take a quick break, guys, and we'll be back in a few seconds, okay?
Hello, Harry Price here. Good evening. If there's nothing myself and everybody else enjoy here on the other side more is the sit back and relax and listen to Parasearch Radio with its paranormal news, views and reviews from across the UK and beyond. Make sure to find out more about them on Facebook, Twitter and the World Wide Web, whatever they are, to keep up to date with all their broadcasts throughout the week. And I hope you enjoy them as much as we do over here. Hello? Is anybody there?
And we're back. Right, Alan, as you were saying.
I just have to apologise. Someone knocked on the door unexpectedly.
Oh, don't apologise. I've got teenagers in and out here every 2 seconds, and they keep going, shh, I'm being quiet.
Yeah, so second time he came down, so obviously he came out of that very distorted. And as you imagine, you just read all this stuff and you're thinking, jeez. So second time he come down, he was taken down during the day, and one of the hangar doors was open. And they were stopped outside the hangar door, and he, walked up and, flat out, there is a traditional looking, flying saucer on its belly on the ground. No stands, no nothing. And Bob was thinking, great, this is what everyone's been talking about. This is the new state-of-the-art propulsion systems that the American government have got going. He walked past and ran his hand along, which he got severely reprimanded for. And he was like, it felt like stainless steel. It felt cold to the touch, etc. And still, he wasn't believing. So he was walked into the laboratory where he met his partner. And don't forget, in government projects, the compartmentalization is very important. So he worked with a chap called Barry Sotilio. He never pronounces his name very correctly, but he worked with this chap, and Barry was tasked with getting him up to speed, and he showed him the propulsion system. So essentially, the propulsion system was very small. We're talking, like a few briefcase type sizes, tall and wide.
Yeah.
But he showed him what it did. So basically, he said, "This is how you activate the reactor," and he put the dome on top, which is like he said, a half basketball on top. And he said, "Well, try and throw this at it." And he got out a golf ball, and he said, "Throw the golf ball at the top of the reactor." And literally, he said it bounced off straight into the ceiling and broke the ceiling tiles, which they laughed about, but got severely reprimanded for afterwards. But he said, as soon as the lid on the reactor was on, his hand, and as he was trying to push it forward, he said he could not get it any closer than like 3 to 4 inches. It was just physically, impossible.
Okay.
So now that in itself obviously is very interesting.
Yeah.
But I suppose if I give you a detail of how the reactor, because he worked there for 6 months.
Yeah.
And the way that reactor worked was, most people in the channel probably have heard of the CERN super collider in Switzerland.
Yeah.
It's been on the news, a lot. It is basically a particle accelerator.
Okay.
So what he allegedly proposed and said that what he saw was a very small super collider.
Yeah.
And what this super collider does, if anybody doesn't know, is essentially charge up protons, electrons, different particles to a speed where they can be bombarded with a target. So you always have a target matter.
Yeah.
And you smash it into that. Now, the target matter in this small particle accelerator was an element called 115.
Yeah.
Now, back in 1988, we got to 111.
Mm-hmm.
So 115 didn't actually exist. Today, it exists.
Okay.
But it has such a short half-life that it doesn't exist for very long. So the half-life of, for example, mosconium, which is 115238, is 5 milliseconds. So it is incredibly, I mean, it goes out of existence like that. So
wow.
Trying to create a stable super heavy element, is far beyond us. And obviously he said that, it doesn't exist in our solar system.
Yeah.
Which is obviously very true. But in a binary or triple star system, it certainly could exist because of the abundance of the material.
Ah.
So there is, it is very interesting to think about it, that, for example, we get gold in the Earth, but maybe they get something else in their planet, for example. So
that's actually quite interesting. You think about it.
I mean, it sounds like truth to me. It does sound like it's not beyond the realms of possibility, in a way.
I would have to agree with that, actually.
Yeah, I mean, it's all plausible, which I think is.
Yeah, it's all plausible.
I mean, when does science fact become science fiction?
But it's proven it, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's proven that's a problem.
Yeah, of course. So they can synthesize like the Durmstrang, the high proton facility in Germany, synthesized 115 for milliseconds. So essentially, this collider smashed particles into the 115, which was stable, big chunk of it. I think it was 200 plus grams.
Yeah.
And it smashed into the 115. Now, transmutation is essentially when you smash a proton or electron into a stable atom, right?
Yeah.
And it creates a new atom. it creates a new element.
Wow.
But in the case of the 115, it created 116, which then has a half-life of next to zero. And then the transmutation causes two things: a gravity A wave and a very large amount, well, a very small amount of antimatter. But when antimatter reacts with matter, it has 100% efficient discharge. So the gravity wave was essentially amplified. So like you, for example, if you have a speaker, you start with a very small sound, and you turn the volume up, and the speaker produces a sound by obviously opening up and amplifying that particular sound wave. It's very similar to gravity. Well, now they know. I mean, don't forget, only recently gravitational waves were detected. And this guy, 20 years ago, is talking about gravitational waves because, you know, back then they were known as gravitons, which they thought were subatomic particles that interacted with matter. But it's just a wave.
Well, what, though, is interesting, like you said, he's been talking about this years ago, and it wasn't believed.
I mean, it's hard, though, isn't it? I mean, you know, you can't take this stuff at face value. I mean, you know, you've got to take it as the evidence produces itself. And, you know, what he produced was obviously a very unique, well, understanding of a propulsion system, which essentially, you know, would be the answer to all our problems. You know, it would be. I mean, being able to produce a gravitational wave would be the be end and end all of everything we need to know. You know, you could do that. If you had a gravitational wave, the universe is your oyster.
Yeah.
And now we're suddenly finally understanding 115 exists. Gravitational waves exist. You know, what he was talking about exists. And he was saying this 20 years ago. So, I mean, it's hard not to give some credibility.
Well, this is the thing. Shouldn't they be giving him a bit more credibility now?
Well, I mean, who wants? I mean, he doesn't want it.
He actually has turned around and he did turn around and say, if you want to be taken seriously, you can't be known as Bob, the Area 51 guy.
Well, don't forget, he owns a scientific laboratory, a supply company.
Does.
And one of the interesting things is because when you're supplying like chemistry labs and stuff, you can get isotopes of like plutonium, uranium, etc.
Yeah.
But in like the quantity, I mean, we're talking like, you know, it's like atoms and atoms of it. Not enough to do, you know, anything apart from maybe, you know, tickle your finger. And he got fully raided by the FBI and charged for it.
I believe he actually said that they handcuffed him and his wife on the lawn.
Yeah, they did. I mean, they broke through his windows and everything.
His wife Joy on the lawn, the front lawn of the house.
I mean, I think that, you know, the important point here, and this is my real interest here, is obviously the credibility of the story, but the technology. And if this technology exists, then surely it's worth exploring. It's beneficial to humankind. It can help us produce a better world environment over the next 20 to 30, maybe, you know, hundreds of years.
Yeah.
And people ridicule it because, in essential, he's a whistleblower, you know, and anyone you speak to that says, oh, the guy, you know, he's a government whistleblower, you know, immediately 99.9% of the people switch off, you know. It's you've got to evaluate the information first.
Well, I mean, like you said, he's running a business now. But what I found really interesting when I was reading about his business, I mean, they supply stuff to all sorts of places. They really do. I mean, they supply stuff to schools, to the government.
Yeah.
Everybody. And, I mean, he has actually said, we're consultants for a lot of companies. You get the strangest phone calls, even from the Navy SEALs, who say, we need a device like this to go overboard and activate. They give specifications and ask, can you build it? We fabricate a prototype, get it to them, do a short production run. By that time, you get another call from another company to make some bizarre equipment and really have a blast.
I mean, according to obviously Stanton Freeman, who is the biggest ufologist debunker, Bob only studied it was like what we'd call a H&D in electronics. All his records got wiped, and all Bob Lazar had left was a paper copy of the monitor. His front page on there saying he worked at the Maison Physics Department, and a directory, an actual, like a Yellow Pages. He had the Yellow Pages for the Maison Physics Department, and he was able to produce that. And not only that, but they were able to get hold of another copy, which was internal, so it confirmed it. So he did work there. Now, did he work there as a staff physicist? Maybe not. Did he and can he explain technology which is obviously far beyond us? He has done. If this guy isn't clever, I really don't know who is.
Well, I mean, the thing that gets me, he's turned around and he's given all this information. You have people who believe him, you have people who don't believe him. But, I mean, Area 51, yes, they have said that it does exist.
Oh, it does. I mean, they've got those satellite photos and everything now.
What are they keeping secret?
Well, obviously nothing anymore, because it's pretty simple. Now, from what I've listened to and researched recently, they have actually moved the facility, and they moved the 9 alleged spacecraft from S4. Bob worked. They have moved those as well, and S4's been demolished completely. But to Area 62, which is northwest of the Nellis Air Force Range, not too far.
Yeah.
But apparently that's where they've moved it to. So.
Well, Lazar has said, I mean, obviously his accounts, he gave a lot of detail in his accounts. He also said he's seen craft fly.
Yes. So did you want to talk about that?
He has also said he got to see inside it.
Yeah. So, Greg.
And they're really small chairs. Why did they need small furniture?
So, I mean, interesting enough, because he worked on, it's basically his project was called Project Galileo.
Yeah.
And he worked on the propulsion systems because Bob, rocket car, etc. That's what he was. Anything with a high energy output, he was interested in. So he did get to go inside the craft only once, and he said that essentially it's about 52. I mean, I've got a picture of the diagram that I can send everybody, but 52 feet wide, about 16 feet tall. The opening, the hatch, was between sort of like 3 to 5 feet tall, maybe a bit less.
Yeah.
You could not stand up as you walked in. You had to, crawl in. Yeah. And there was 3 small chairs in the deck. Now, one of the things that I do find very interesting is that he said that there was no seams, no rivets, no bolts, no nothing. Almost like it had been injection molded. Now, back then, obviously, injection molding was a form of making, a part with no seams, so it's super durable. Yeah. But don't forget now, we got 3D printing. So maybe these crafts were actually like 3D printed in a way, but with metal, etc. In a large factory. Yeah. He didn't say that, but he did say that he could imagine a large factory somewhere, producing these crafts.
Yeah.
And there was no wiring. There was obviously lots of archways. He did say that when the craft was powered up, one of the archways, the main archways, became translucent straight to the outside. so you could see the outside through the metal. So I don't know what you want to call that, transparent aluminum or whatever, but I don't know. And he said that the craft was like a finely tuned ballet, almost like that the craft was tuned to a certain frequency, and that's how it worked. It was like 7.63 gigahertz. It was tuned perfectly. I mean, it's like when you get the pitchfork and you hit it, and it goes, ring, ring. He said that the craft was like that, like a finely tuned
instrument.
Yeah, which I find, it's also art integrating with technology in a way.
This is the thing that gets me. I mean, my thoughts on it. If these alleged crafts do exist, and they have somehow ended up at Area 51, he has seen them by his accounts. My way of looking at it is, it's like a whole big conspiracy theory. It's almost as if they know that there's someone else who is far technology-wise far ahead of us from somewhere else, and that's why it's all hidden.
I mean, you've got to be thinking not only far ahead of us, but millennia at least.
Exactly. They've got all this information, and they're trying to figure out how they've done it.
Yeah, I mean, what he did say about the crafts and what he did read in the briefings was that Element 115 they'd given us £500 of it, and they'd given us some how do you call it? Not repaired spacecraft to work on. Yeah. And basically, here's a gift. But also, he did say that not every single one of them was the same, and not everybody had been, not every spacecraft had been given as well, which I suppose is a very interesting feature to say that maybe there's not only one, but maybe a few alien species in contact with the planet. But, I can't say that for sure.
No,
what I can say for sure, though, is that Bob Lazar, he never gave many interviews. He was correct about 115. Yeah. He was totally correct about gravitational waves. And honestly, that's been hotly debated for ages. He's never, ever once been on the prowl for media. He's never wanted any attention. He just wanted to stay away from Bob, the UFO guy. In a way. So that to me gives it credibility. Believe what you may, but I mean, scientifically, he's been proven right twice.
Well, like you said, the element 115 didn't exist back in 1989.
No, they were up to 111, 112. Yeah. Yeah. But the thing is, though, that these elements decay. The farther up the periodic table you get, the quicker these elements decay. But there is an island stability between certain elements where you can create these super heavy elements. And literally, that was all theoretical. I mean, totally theoretical back then. Is he a good guesser? Maybe. Is he a fantasist? Maybe, but whatever he said scientifically has come true.
That's the thing, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean,
he has been proven to speak certain elements of the truth.
Yeah, I mean, what do most people go off right now? Science, media. Science. He's proved his point. Media doesn't want to.
Right. I wanted to ask you about this because.
Sure.
He actually moved out of the state, didn't he? He up sticks and left.
New Mexico, yeah. So he's in the mountains of New Mexico at the moment.
But he's built a 30-foot long particle accelerator behind his house.
Yes, indeed, yeah.
Why?
So now, not a lot of people. I mean, unless you look into it, and you've done everything to research possibly, the theory is, and he won't talk about it. Every time you ask him, it's like that. But he did smuggle some 115 out of Area S4. Now, John Lear does actually feature in this story, but it does confuse it a lot. John Lear, he is the son of Bill Lear. I think it's Bill Lear, who built the Learjet. So most people have heard of the private Learjet. And his son is a massive UFO buff. John Lear went on to TV in Las Vegas about 2 months before Bob did. So the story is that Bob, John, and his friend Gene have met, and they were having conversations, and Bob sort of let slip that they went to, he went and saw it, and then guess what? Bob knew the test flight schedule for the different planes. So the different aircraft schedules for the tests. So he took out John Lear, his wife, Jean, because he didn't want them to think he was crazy. So they managed to get out there twice and actually watch a launched UFO or alleged UFO, because for them, and they got it on video. The video is common proof. It's on the internet, but it looks like a ball of light. It comes out of the mountain, hovers, does some drastic maneuvers, goes down. And the second time, it does exactly the same. The third time, they all get captured.
Yeah.
And obviously, Bob being an apparent employee there, got caught.
Oops.
And this is where the downfall for him happened, because he wasn't only under investigation because his wife was having an affair, because they monitored his phone lines, but also he now got caught showing people the test flight schedule, from S4. So he was go on.
I've actually found this from an interview that Lazar done in 1993.
Yeah.
Because some of the stories that came out, about Lazar were really bizarre, weren't they?
Bizarre Lazar.
bizarre. But this one actually made me kind of giggle. Lazar said in a 1993 interview, "The latest one is that you and I and John Lear are all Shriners, or 32nd degree Masons, and the saucer story is all a cover. It's really the Shriners who are flying these machines."
Now, this is, the thing is, so that is really interesting, and you know what? When you think about John Lear, and if you've ever watched John Lear, first of all you think of is like, Jesus, this is another UFO guy. But when you listen to Bob Lazar, when you listen to the degree of his knowledge, and I've seen him on a radio show like 2 or 3 times now. You're not seen him like physically, but heard him on physically. And we've got people like proper physicists phoning in and asking him questions, and he's like, honestly, his knowledge, he just like, this and this, it was tuned to that, it amplified this, and they're all like, yep. I've never heard him stumble on a talk-to-talk radio show. And if anybody wants to listen to that, it's mainly Art Bell. Obviously a very famous paranormal radio presenter. He does a lot of stuff. But if anyone wants to listen to that, he doesn't falter. There's no hesitation. There's no pauses. He actually just knows what he's talking about.
It's very factual. He's very factual in what he's saying.
Yeah, like honestly, when I don't know about you, but when I talk to someone that's lying to me,
Yeah.
There is a very, very clear distinction between the truth and a lie.
Yeah.
And even if he was lying about the whole backstory, what he did tell about the technology is so pertinent today.
Yeah.
And then the technology is so relevant today. It's strange that nobody is actually taking account of it, because you can produce a gravitational wave now. You can synthesize very tiny, tiny, tiny. I mean, we're talking atoms of 115. It's called, if anyone wants to know, mosconium, which is, funnily enough, named after the place where it was discovered, Moscow.
Yeah.
But mosconium, it's been shown to be the most super stable element that we know at the moment, and it can be built on as well. So, the elements of his story 20 years ago, almost 20 years ago today, sort of thing, are so relevant. Is he a good liar? Yes.
Or a fantasist?
Or a fantasist? Yes. Does he know his science? Undoubtedly.
Yeah.
I mean, the way
this is the thing, isn't it? I mean, he clearly has spoken about things way in advance of them actually occurring. So that information's got to have come from somewhere.
I mean, gravitons back in the 1980s was the accepted form of how gravity interacts with our universe.
Yeah.
But until recently, obviously, they've detected the first gravitational waves, which is now the common and accepted belief of how we interact with gravity. And therefore, he just made 20-year jump,
That's a huge leap, isn't it?
I mean, unless you're Einstein, or unless you're very, very clever, this sort of stuff is way beyond any normal mind means.
Yeah.
It's like me walking into a shop and trying to tell you how CERN works. This guy walked into this place and he's telling you how this spacecraft works, and it's right.
You've got to give him some credit. He has to have some credit.
Yeah.
He really does.
I mean, I suppose that, some of the sad backstory to it was that, obviously, he was shot at while driving. And this was shortly after. So basically, his wife was having an affair. He took these people out to see the spacecraft. They found out. He was taken to the Indian Sands Air Force Base, put at gunpoint, and threatened. This is his backstory, but he literally then thought how best to save myself. And even when you think about this, though, so he went to the press. So if they did anything to him, then immediately by killing him, you validate the story.
Why.
Yeah, you validate the story by killing him. It's like, so he did everything right, and out of like maybe say 200 cases that I've read, Bob Lazar, and there's a few others actually, but Bob Lazar, he did everything that you'd expect not to happen.
Well, I mean, another quote. I mean, he's never really minced his words about his story, has he? He's always stuck to his story. It's never ever changed.
Nope.
And he's never kind of tripped up or in any way.
Not in any way.
Think he isn't credible in any way. But I mean, by all accounts, the man did up sticks and leave. He's left it all behind. It sounds like it's going to dog him his whole life.
Well, it has to. I mean, it's 20 years later, and the guy can't get away from it. I mean, he must get. I emailed him, so he must get thousands a day.
I mean, he must be sitting thinking. I mean, when these things happen, like 115, he must be sitting thinking, saying, "See, I told you." He must think that.
He did the 2015 interview with George Knapp, and obviously 115 had been discovered in 2012.
Yeah.
So he was vindicated on that part, and gravity is a wave, not a particle. And he was vindicated on that. So, you know, it was great. But the one really crucial statement he said that if the government would ever take me back, I would say I'm sorry, because I would love to go back and work on the project. Now, I mean, most people don't say that, you know, if they'd worked or something like that and got scared and, you know, the guy wants to go back. It's like, you know, there's something going on here. Either he's the most amazing liar of all time or amazing brain liar of all time.
Yeah.
But, you know, or he's telling the truth. I mean, come on.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, I mean, it's just simple, isn't it? It's like, you know, someone's telling the truth. You kind of just know it, really. It's a feeling you get. I mean, talking from personal experience, but you know, when I first listened to this, and this is what got me interested in the whole field. When I listened to this, I was like really interested to know about the propulsion systems, because I was really interested in you know, space travel. And how we'd get to the stars. So this cropped up on this, and then obviously my interest in ufology side from there. I'm not interested in reptilian agenda, anything like that, or whatever. I'm interested in spacecraft, propulsion, technology, what, you know, where, how, and why we can get there, and why do we want to get there. And this rang a bell with me. It felt like truth, and over these 12 years, you know, he's been proved. It's like, you know, do you need much more? Excuse me.
Well, this is the thing. Nothing is ever going to be absolutely proved, is it? It never will be. It's always going to be speculation, and there are going to be theories and conspiracy theories, and because basically it's been going on for so long now, I don't see the truth ever really coming out. I mean, you do have to wonder what exactly was in Area 51.
Well, I mean, obviously we know that it was
by his accounts.
1952 U2 Blackbird. You know, it was designed for, you know, obviously ultra secret military aircraft. But you know, how would someone like this back then, you know, he may have been thinking theoretically, but he said exactly the right things about two which groundbreaking physical and scientific phenomena. You know, an element super stable, a gravitational wave, which was theoretical at the time, and it wasn't even the common theory. You know, he could have guessed that, but you know, he's getting a bloody good guesser as he goes on, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I do know exactly what you mean. Well, I mean, I'm going to actually finish this with a quote from Bob Lazar.
Okay.
Like you said, he wants to go back. He does want to go back.
He did, yeah. He's still, I mean, from what I heard, he definitely would like to work on it again. He said to me, well, not to me, but he said on camera that he would say, I'm really sorry that I ever revealed anything, but if you have me back in the programme, I would, you know, happily come back in the programme.
Well, what he's actually turned around and said is, I felt very privileged to be part of the project, and it was fascinating to be in it in any way, shape or form. But life moves on. So it's almost like he's blown the whistle and just moved, but now he would go back, I think.
I mean, who wouldn't, you know, if you said to me, we're going to go work on some alien spacecraft, you know, I wouldn't give a crap if I had, you know, 1 A-level, 1 GCSE, I'd be in the door like a shot. But don't forget, right, Bob Lazar, he designed his own, like, and this is, you know, 25 years ago, he designed his car to work on hydrogen, and he put a metal hydride into the tank, and basically, like, all people know from electrolysis through simple scientific, examples that you can get your own hydrogen. So basically, he had his own hydrogen going and filling up his car. And he used to run this huge car on hydrogen about 700 miles an hour. Sorry, well, maybe not. 700 miles per, tank. Yeah. But this was 25 years ago, and he did put this forward, this idea forward to BP. Yeah. And metal hydride is a very restricted composite, if you will. It's actually only used in missiles and nuclear missiles. Yeah. But it's like a sponge for hydrogen. Yeah. And he said if you shoot a bullet at it, so if you shoot a bullet at a normal petrol tank, obviously it's going to explode. But he said that the worst thing with metal hydride as a sponge, you shoot a bullet, it smoulders. So he said it's the most safest way to travel and the furthest he can get it to go. Yeah. Now, this guy, right, he may not have got any degrees, whatever, but I can tell you right now, he is smarter than anybody I've ever met. It feels like that way, Yeah. It kind of like, it rolls in that area where, this guy really knows what he's talking about. Yeah. Don't forget, Einstein, for example, was self-taught. He was a self-taught physicist. Going to MIT is fantastic. But, these people sometimes have insights that traditional people taught that way don't have. So, more credibility to the story, anyway.
Yeah. Well, we're going to have to wrap this up. But, Alan, thank you so much for coming and talking about this with me. It's one of them ones I think we're going to have to discuss this further, because at some point we're going to have to. I'd
like to do. If you're up to it.
What I think would be interesting. Both you and I are going to a certain place.
Are we? What? Say to Reticuli?
To do Rendlesham Forest.
Yes, next year. Yeah.
We are going to Rendlesham Forest, so I think when we come back from that, we need to do a show on that.
Well, there is also a story, and it's on Dr. Jonathan Sparks. Yeah. Which I know a tremendous amount about. Yeah. And also, it certainly has the characteristics of the credibility. So, if you want another show along those lines, then, I'm well happy to give that.
Well, we'll need to book that in then.
I'll book it in.
For tonight, I'd just like to say thank you to everyone who listened. Please remember to follow Parasearch Radio on, of course, our Facebook page, YouTube and Twitter. You can also listen to other shows. So thank you, Alan, for joining me tonight.
Not a problem at all. It's my pleasure.
And thank you guys for listening. And next week, I will be interviewing Maxine Jane Briggs from Enigma. So hopefully you can join me then. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to join us for more shows throughout the week. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and the World Wide Web to keep up to date with all the shows right here on Parasearch Radio.